This is Marie from Underground Crafter, and welcome to part 1 of the Layers of Texture Infinity Scarf Crochet-a-Long. I am using 2 different colors in Lion Brand Heartland. This is my color A for today. It's 105 Glacier Bay, and this is going to be my color B for today, which is 124 Big Bend. I actually used the leftover yarn from the sample, so I don't have those 2 colors anymore, so I had to switch things up a little bit, but I think these 2 colors are pretty good. So what you want to do is start with 20 chains in your color A, in this case with my Glacier Bay. And what we're going to do once you have those 20 chains is we're going to skip 5 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to crochet into the 6th stitch. We're going to work a double crochet. So for those of you that don't remember a double crochet, you're going to start by wrapping the yarn over. In this case, you're skipping 5 stitches, although generally that's not the case. Then you're going to insert your hook into the designated stitch, so you'll have 3 loops on the hook. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through 1 loop, yarn over again, pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops once more. That's the double crochet. And we're going to be using a lot of double crochets and a lot of chains for this particular project, so hopefully you like the double crochet. So once we've done that first double crochet, now we're going to repeat a pattern across this row, and that pattern is going to be a chain 1, so we'll make 1 chain, we're going to skip 1 chain, and then we're going to double crochet into the next chain. And that's what we're going to do all the way across the row. So again, we'll be chaining 1, skipping 1, and then double crocheting in the next stitch all the way across the row. And so what you can see is that we're making a kind of mesh, and for those of you that have done filet crochet before, this is probably super familiar to you, but it's going to have a little bit of an added twist for the intermeshing crochet, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment once we get done with this first foundation row that we're setting up. And this foundation row is pretty similar for any type of intermeshing crochet project that you do. The only thing that will vary will be the number of chains that you start with. And of course that will be based on how wide you want your project to be and your specific stitch pattern. Okay, so we made our way across the row, and let me tell you a couple things that'll be helpful throughout this project. First off, let's count our stitches. This very first one, these 5 that we skipped, is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So you should have 17 stitches in your first row, your foundational row with your color A, and that is including both chain 1 spaces and double crochets, counting both as stitches. So now what we're going to do is set this aside, and you may remember that I recommended using locking stitch markers, and you may have been wondering why. Well, in this project there's going to be times where you're actually going to take your hook out of your crochet, and I'm going to put the locking stitch marker into this color A foundation row so it doesn't unravel, and then I'm going to put it to the side, and I'm going to pick up my color B chain, which I did in advance, but what you'll need to do is to chain 18. So it's 2 less than we used for the foundation row and in the color A. And the foundation row in the color B is exactly the same as the color A. So we're going to skip the first 5 chains and then double crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to repeat all the way across, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next. Okay, so again we're going to skip the first 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and double crochet into that 6th stitch, and then we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet in the next stitch all the way across. Now, if you don't want to use a locking stitch marker, but you are worried about losing your loops, another alternative is to cut a small piece of yarn and just tie it in a little knot around your loop on your hook. You can also just pull your loops up really high when you're done with the last row and leave it, but that's not really good for traveling. It's okay if you're just leaving your project at home, but it's not really going to hold up if you're, putting it in a bag and things like that. So we're almost done with this first row here. Again, our foundational row in color B. And let's just check this one out. We should have 15 stitches. Again, the first one is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space, those 5 that we skipped. And then we have another double crochet, another chain 1 space, and all together we should have 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Perfect. Okay, so now comes the fun part. What are we doing with these 2 pieces of fabric, you may wonder? So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it so that the working yarn is on the right side if we're right-handed and on the left side if we're left-handed. Okay, so in other words, you're going to turn both pieces so that they're exactly the way they would be if you were normally going to start crocheting the next row. So again, for righties, you'll want the working yarn will be on the right side. For lefties, it'll be on the left side. And I'm going to put this stitch marker into my color B for the moment because right now we're going to be working with our color A, and so I don't want to lose my loops for my color B. So just to refresh, we turned both pieces and we have our color A piece on the top and our color B piece on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the color B working yarn to the front. So in other words, while I'm not working on it, I'm going to leave this yarn at the front. And that may seem a little bit strange, but it makes sense later because when we pick it up, we want it to be in the right position. So we're going to drop it to the front. And now with color A, and we're holding the 2 pieces on top of each other, with color A, we're going to chain 4. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space all the way through the rest of the project. So every time we start with a chain 4, think of it as our first double crochet and our first chain 1 space. Now is the part where things get fun. We're going to do something called a DCF, or a double crochet in front of the next stitch. Now, front and back, what does that mean? With our bottom layer, we're going to position it so that wherever there is a chain 1 space on the top, there'll be a double crochet on the bottom, and vice versa. So wherever we have a double crochet on the top, if you look, there'll be a chain 1 space on the bottom. So that's the main reason that the 2 pieces aren't the same size, because at the very end, the color A piece is going to overlap. Okay? So again, we have just to refresh, we have our color B piece on the bottom, and our first double crochet on the color B piece is kind of in the position where our first chain 1 space is on our color A piece. Okay, which for me, the color A is the blue and the color B is the brown. Okay, and we have 4 chains. All right, so now we're going to do this thing called double crochet in the front. So in the front of what, you might be saying? Well, we want, like we said, in this particular scenario, the front is this blue part, the back is the brown part. So we're going to double crochet in the front is really going to be right now a regular old double crochet because there's nothing else happening yet. So we're going to just double crochet into the next double crochet. Whew, that was easy. When does it get hard, you might be asking? Now we're going to repeat this next part twice. We're going to chain 1. Again, we're going to skip 1 chain, and we're going to double crochet in the back of the next stitch. Now what does that mean? Well, we're going to push our color A piece, our blue piece, so that it's coming out the back of that chain 1 space on the brown piece. And then we're going to double crochet into that next stitch. Now I want to just make sure you realize that we're not at any time going to be double crocheting. You're always going to be working your color A stitches into your color B stitches. So you notice I didn't put that into the brown, I kept it in the blue, but what I did was I gently pushed the blue behind. And I'm just going to show you that again because it might be a little confusing, so I'm just unraveling so I can show you again. So to repeat that again, you're going to make your chain 1 space. You're going to skip the next chain 1 here. and we have our brown piece lined up again so that our first double crochet in the brown is coming through our first chain 1 space on the blue. Okay, and so now for this next piece, since I'm going in the back, what I like to do is I just gently push this piece that I'm working on, the very specific stitch that I'm going to work on in the back, I just push it through that chain 1 space so that it's in the back there. You don't actually have to push it that far, but I think especially at the beginning it makes it a lot easier to see. So now you can see the next stitch and it's on the back, so we're going to double crochet just into the blue. Okay, so once we've done this first one that's in the back, you'll see that these two pieces are basically held together. So now we don't have to worry as much about positioning the back piece and holding it because it's in position already. Okay, so we did that first part, and remember I said we're going to do something twice. So the first thing that we were doing was that part is going to be done twice. So we're going to chain 1 again. We're going to skip the chain 1 space, and we're skipping on the blue on our color A, and then our next stitch we're going to do that double crochet in the back. So again, I'm going to push my blue piece out the back of the space on the brown piece, and then I'm going to do my double crochet back there. Now again, what you'll see is that the brown piece is moving towards the front wherever we went in the back, but in no way am I actually stitching into the brown from the blue. Okay, so now we're going to go back to that easy part. We did that twice, so now we're going to do the next part twice, which is going to be chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet in the front. Now double crochet in the front is pretty straightforward because we're just working into our regular double crochet stitch. So that's 1. And now let's do 2. We're going to chain 1, we're going to skip 1, and we're going to double crochet in the front of the next stitch. Okay, so you can see again that we have these 2 in the back and 2 in the front, again twice. So we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet in the back again twice. So we chained 1, we're skipping 1. Now this part we're going to just, again, we're going to push our next double crochet through the back of the brown, or our color B, and then we're going to we're going to double crochet in the back. Okay, so make sure you picked it up, and then you're going to double crochet back there. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to do that again. We're skipping 1, and we're going to double crochet in the back again. So our next double crochet should be coming out in the back, and we're going to do that again. Okay, and now to end this row, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to double crochet in the front of the top of our turning chain. Okay, so we're going to skip this as a chain 1 space because remember at the beginning of the last row this counted as a chain 1 space and a double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet here. Alright, so now that we have our first row and it's not as scary, let's just kind of look at what's going on. So you can see there's 2 layers of fabric. They're not joined yet at the bottom, which we'll do at the end. I'm going to pull this up a little bit so I can take the hook out. And what we've done is some of our double crochets are in the front layer, meaning that they're just pretty much normal double crochets that we would do into the same color. Some of them are in the back layer, but they're always going into the same color. We're also always working our double crochets into double crochets. We're never putting a double crochet into a chain space. So you're always going to have this mesh where you have the chain space and then the double crochet, and that mesh is actually what is allowing the other color to show through because they're alternating. Wherever there's a chain 1 space or one of these little empty boxes on the front, on the back we have a double crochet that's sort of shining through. And now we're going to actually turn it, not in the pattern, but just so you can see it. You can see that we're getting the same thing on the back, and that's what makes it reversible. So with these particular, with the intermeshing crochet, every row has 2 parts, and you're not going to turn until both parts are finished. And so now I'm going to pick up my brown piece, and I'm going to put my stitch marker into the blue part or raise up the loop high, whatever you prefer to do, just to keep it from unraveling. And now I'm going to pick up my brown piece and I'm going to do, which is my color B, and I'm going to do row 1B. So I'm going to start with a chain 4 again, and that again is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. And then I'm going to double crochet in the back of the next stitch. Now we kind of talked about this before, but I'm sure you can guess. With the color A, when we double crochet in the front, that's like the pretty normal stuff. And with the color B, when we double crochet in the back, that's the pretty normal stuff too. Okay, so this is our first double crochet, so we would double crochet into this one in the back, and we don't have to cross anything over because it's already in the back. So that's a double crochet. And now we're going to repeat this next part twice. We're going to chain 1, skip 1, and then double crochet in the front. Now this stitch happens to already be in the front because of the way that the stitch was before. It's not always going to work out that way, but in this case the brown is already to the front side, so we're just going to double crochet in that next brown, and then we're going to repeat that. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the chain 1 space, and we're going to double crochet in the front into the next brown. And again, that will keep us with these 2 on the front. Now we're going to repeat the next part twice again. We're going to chain 1 and skip 1 and double crochet in the back. Now we're going to go back here, so we're not going to be crossing over in any way from the front layer of blue. We're going to go back into the brown and double crochet, and we're repeating that. We're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the chain 1 space, and we're going to double crochet in the back here in this brown. Okay. Now we're going to chain 1 and skip 1 again, and we're going to double crochet in the front, which is perfect for us because this is already in the front. And you'll find that most of these patterns will work out that way. The color B yarn will often be in the right position. It won't be as hard to manage as the color A yarn. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to end with a double crochet in the back here. Okay. So that's the first row, row 1A and row 1B. And just to walk you through it again, because I know for some of you this is really new. So what we've done, just to make sure everybody understands, is we have 2 different kinds of stitches. We have double crochets and we have chain 1 spaces. You can think of the chain 1 spaces as these empty boxes. We're only going to be working our double crochets into double crochets of the same color. And we're only going to be, we're always going to be making a chain 1 space and skipping our chain 1 spaces. We have our yarn position so that our color A yarn is on top of our color B yarn. Our color A yarn is a little bit wider. You can see it had those extra 2 chains at the beginning. And because of that, it's going to alternate so that the color B double crochets are always going to be in the position of the color A chain 1 spaces and vice versa. So that so far is our row 1A and 1B. And now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the whole project. So again, if you are a righty, the yarn will end up on the right side. If you're a lefty, the yarn will end up on the left side. And then we're going to drop the color B yarn to the front of the project. So we're going to keep it in the front, and we're going to pick up our color A. So I'm going to switch because I only brought 1 stitch marker today. So I'm going to switch my stitch marker to the color B. If you had 2, that would be cool too. I'm going to pick up my color A. And now with color A, I'm going to chain 4, and again that's going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. And I'm going to start with a double crochet in the back. So again, the back would be behind the other color. So I'm going to insert the hook into the blue because I'm using blue, but again behind the other color. So right here into the next one, that's a double crochet in the back. And then I'm going to chain 1 and skip 1, and the double crochet in the back again. So I'm just wanting to make sure my next blue is behind the brown when I make the stitch. Now you'll notice that I'm not actually going through the other color. I just want to make sure that's clear. So I'm not actually putting my hook into the other color or going under the other color. I'm only maneuvering the same color into the front or the back, okay? And that's something that's really important with intermeshing crochet. So now again, I started with those first 2 double crochets in the back, and now the next part that I'm going to repeat is I'm going to chain 1 and skip 1, and then I'm going to double crochet in the front. I'm going to do that twice. So chain 1, skip 1, and now I'm going to double crochet in the front. So I'm going to pull this towards the front. Oops, I lost my loop there. That happens sometimes. So again, I'm going to double crochet in the front. And then I'm going to repeat that. So I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to skip 1, and then on this next blue, I'm going to double crochet in the front. It's much easier, I think, for most people to do the double crochets in the front because those are much more like a quote-unquote regular double crochet. So now the next part I'm going to repeat twice, and that's going to be chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the back. Okay, so chain 1 and skip 1, and now I'm going to take this next blue part, bring it through the back of the chain 1 space on the brown, and I'm going to double crochet in there. Then I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to chain 1 and skip 1. I'm going to push this next piece to the back, and then I'm going to double crochet in there. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 1 and skip 1 and double crochet in the front twice. So I'm going to bring this blue back up to the front and double crochet in it, and then I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to double crochet in the front again into the very last stitch over here. Okay, so now I'm done with my color B, and I'm going to drop that color, or sorry, I'm done with the color A. So I'm just going to put my loop in it, and remember, we don't turn until both sides, both parts of the row, both colors have been worked. So for now, we're just leaving it this way, and we're going to pick up the color B, which for me is the brown, and the yarn is already in the front, which is where we need it to be. And this part is going to be a repeat of what we did for row 1B, so the row that we already did with the brown. So let's just do that again. It's going to be chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and at this point it's easier because the 2 fabrics are already intermeshing. They're already kind of connected. So then we're going to start with our double crochet in the back of the next stitch, and it's already kind of back here, which is nice, makes it a little bit easier to work with. So we're going to double crochet in there, and then we're going to chain 1 and skip 1 and double crochet in the front twice. So chain 1, skip 1, and to go in the front, we're just going to pull this out a little bit more towards the front. And then we're going to do that twice. So chain 1 and skip 1, and then double crochet in the front. And again, I'm just pushing this brown towards the front so that I don't have to put my hook into the blue at all. It's only going into the next double crochet in the brown. Okay, and now I'm going to do the next part twice, which is going to be chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet in the back. So chain 1, skip 1, and now we're going to go in the back. So we're going to double crochet back here, 1 and 2. So this next one should be back here, and 2. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1 and skip 1 and double crochet in the front in the next stitch. Should be this one here. And then chain 1 and skip 1 and double crochet in the back of our last stitch, which is here. Okay, so that's row 1, A and B, and row 2, A and B. So you can see you're starting to see some interesting patterns forming. and it's reversible, but they're not identical on both sides. What you'll want to do is keep repeating row 1A and 1B and row 2A and 2B until this measures about 8.5 inches long from this very first part. Okay, and that's if you want to make a scarf the same length of mine, which is about 54 inches long. If you'd like to make it longer, what I recommend for infinity scarves is kind of increasing them to be roughly in the neighborhood of 26 inches bigger each time, because that gives you another wraparound. So if you wanted to go for a third wraparound, mine is really set up for 2 wraparounds, you'd probably want to be in the neighborhood of 76 inches or so. And so if you were going to do that with these 6 different stitch patterns, I would recommend making each part about 12 inches long instead of 8.5 inches long. So I hope that was helpful. I'm looking forward to seeing your first parts, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know, and I look forward to seeing your versions in the comments.